Welcome to another noon dish. Means it's Wednesday. Means it's 12 p.m. Means it's Inside Carolina's Don Callahan and Tommy Ashley, sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. Don, it is the season started, and I'm
Yes,
and I'm
yes.
I'm always curious as to how the season beginning plays into your ability to cover recruiting and how it changes what you do on a daily. I know the weekends certainly are a little bit more hectic, especially when the Tar Heels are in Kenan Stadium.
Yeah, so I guess I get this question actually a lot, and a lot of people assume that football season means busy season for me. And as you know, Tommy, by now, that's not the case. June is the busy month for me. The season, I mean, there's stuff to do, but it's actually I feel like it's so organized that it's easier. So obviously, weekends where North Carolina is home, that's a busy time for me because obviously I'm at UNC taking photos of recruits on the sidelines, and then in the days that follow, I'm trying to catch up with those recruits to get their thoughts on their visit, and then also, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but go to a lot of high school practices, high school games, that sort of thing. But all this stuff is basically kind of organized. Like I know where I'm going to go. I know what's happening. There aren't that many commitments nowadays that happen during the season because what has happened is the season is kind of the official or de facto official flipping of the page to the next class. And yes, North Carolina is continuing to recruit 2025s, but 26s, I mean, where they're visiting is key right now. And those guys are just kind of starting off. Although, some of them have been in it for a while. You want to get to top five, and I don't even remember who our chat MVP was.
I do not remember. I can tell you that my ability to control the bots last night on the beat, or the show formerly known as On the Beat, and soon to have a new name. Dude, the bots were unbelievable last night. So I've done the homework to control them today. But over the course of the last 2 weeks since you and I last talked, I don't remember who the
So
chat
YouTube doesn't
MVP.
do a good job of like monitoring that for you. I
No,
guess. Uh,
no. I mean, you can set. There's certain settings you can set
uh-huh.
that keep people out. And so we've instituted those. It sucks because some people have to act like idiots, and so it spoils it for potentially getting new viewers and to
Yeah.
comment. People can still watch, but you can't say whatever the heck you wanted to. I've always enjoyed when people say, "Oh, I got freedom of speech." Well, you don't have freedom of consequences of what you say, and that
Yeah.
you can say whatever you want for the most part, but you might get punched in the face.
Well, plus,
Or
enemies.
in this case, banned from our chat.
Yeah.
Similar. It was
People just,
crazy, man.
yeah, people just want to, I don't know. I'm just going to go. I'm looking at the chat from last time because I was at the beach when
You
we did
were.
it. I was, yeah. So I
Maybe
was.
the chat MVP last week was Suttis, or 2 weeks ago was Suttis, because he's
Well,
right
I was.
there.
I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it to Sean Crawley.
Okay. Sean is
Crowley.
always in here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at this, and so Sean has an orange S next to his name, and I'm scrolling through, and all I see is orange S's.
Yeah.
And of course, today Sean's in here, and and you know what? He definitely gets it. Brings up 3 shore bombs last night.
Oh, yeah. This guy, I was going to throw up a thing. Your guy that you hate on is
Hey,
dominating.
dude, I don't hate him. I hate that he's leading off. Because here's the crazy thing is like, so he had a leadoff home run last night. He had another, I don't know if it was leadoff, but it was a solo home run. And everyone says, oh, he can't hit with guys on base. Like that freaking matters. Well, he had 2 guys on base late in the game. The Phillies were down by 1 or 2, and he hits a home run with 2 guys on base for a 3-run home run. So, I mean, it's just, the guy, he's a career 200 hitter, so he doesn't hit that much anyway. But when he connects, most of the time it's going out. And so, yeah, so last night he had 3 home runs. So thanks for pointing that out. He's Schwarber.
Let me put this up. Let me put this up right here. There have been 2 games in Major League history where players had that, and
Look,
he's done it in the last month.
he is a great player. I just would like for him to be in the middle of the lineup so that there's more people on base when he hits those home runs.
Yeah.
That's my beef. And I guess my main beef is just the excuses that people are buying into just drive me nuts, and they're not based in any sort of like actual credibility. The excuses on why he's batting first, But anyway,
Let's get off of that. Let me
let's
give a
go off
couple
that.
shout out. Obviously, Sean and Preston are in the
Yes,
chat.
chat MVP.
Look, Henny from Abu Dhabi
Ooh,
might be the furthest away person ever.
yeah.
I mean, that's on the
Where do
other
you see
side of the
that?
world, man. Henny, how far away? How many miles to Chapel Hill?
Where do you see that? Where do you see?
At the very top of the chat.
Oh, the
Very
Chapel
first thing.
chat. Okay. Okay. We might
So-
have to give him chat MVP.
Yeah. So a couple things. One, the fair in Minnesota was huge. So we're going to make our top 5 this week. It's going to be top 5 fair foods. And Don, I will say this. I've said it to everybody to listen. I highly recommend getting to Minneapolis. Whether it's for I went so here's what we did. Listen to this schedule. We fly in at the crack of dawn on Thursday, and I'll go through it quick. Crack of dawn on Thursday. Get to the hotel, the Hilton in Minneapolis. We were able to check in at 8 a.m. You can't beat that because otherwise we'd have had all day until 3 o'clock.
Check into your hotel at 8 a.m.
Yep. Got into a room at we had two.
Special for that?
Do what? No. Just
Really?
walked up to the front and said, "Can I check in?" We've got 2 rooms, and they were like, "One of them's ready. Yeah, you can check in." So we checked.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've done that, but not that early. I mean,
But usually they'll say, "Well, you can, but it's X amount of dollars."
Oh,
early.
see, I've never had that, but I've never. I don't think I've ever attempted earlier than 1 or noon, maybe.
Yeah. So we checked in that early. So we hung out. We explored a little bit. Had great breakfast at the Hen House in downtown Minnesota. We were going to do all the tailgating stuff with the Minnesota crowd that we had met last year, and they invited us to their tailgates, but it was a crazy storm, so we didn't do that. So we hung out in the hotel bar area, which was enjoyable. Then we went to the game, saw the game, obviously pretty crazy football game. Big Ten, but also crazy. Get home, get up, first thing Friday morning, go to the Minnesota State Fair. Dude, I've never in my life. I've been to the North Carolina State Fair over the years. The North Carolina State Fair looked like a county fair compared to the Minnesota State Fair.
Do you like North Carolina State Fair?
I mean, I people watch and I eat, and as I've gotten older, I'm not into all those rides and stuff, but I want to see the animals and all that kind of stuff. So, yes, if I've got a good place to park.
I'm not a fair person, and I try to avoid. I have been plenty of times, but I just don't like it. But Hank, go ahead.
Minnesota State Fair is unbelievable. It was like 175, 180,000 people there that day. First of all, it's huge.
Okay.
It is the biggest in the country. They do it right. The animals. I'm big on going to see the animals, whether it's the cows or the goats or whatever. They had hundreds, if not thousands, of animals, horses, everything that you check out. The food, man, they had just obviously cheese curds is a big thing there. And then the corn. I'm not a big corn person. My body doesn't do corn very well, so we didn't get the corn. But just like it was just unbelievable. And the people were so nice. I mean, it was just so chilled, laid back, no issues. And then after that, we went to the Twins game on Friday night, which was
cool.
a beautiful stadium. Highly recommend Target Field in downtown Minneapolis. And then we went to Prince's place on Saturday morning. We went to see Paisley Park, which was cool. I'm a big Prince guy. And then we didn't fly out till later, so we went to the Mall of America.
Okay.
I don't know what was more insane, the Mall of America or the fair. The Mall of America is friggin' huge, and it's got a full-size theme park in the middle of it. They had roller coasters.
Crazy.
They had a flume ride, the water rides, the log ride. They had all of that stuff, and they just had an unbelievable. So I highly recommend going to Minneapolis if you have opportunity. Great time going to the football game. Minnesota fans are awesome. They were chill. I'm not for Big Ten football, but it was just a great trip all around. If you enjoy getting out and seeing other areas, highly recommend.
I won't. We got to get to recruiting before people start to get angry. But in recent, I don't know, within the last 10 years, a little less than that, we have chosen to do vacations, one in Cleveland and the other in Buffalo / Niagara in July. And I can go into detail, but I won't right now. But we actually enjoyed it so much more. There's a lot that you can do if you actually like kind of not even really look into it too much. But anyway, we need to get to recruiting.
Yeah, love to travel. Speaking of travel, a lot of North Carolina targets will be taking official visits and going all over the country to their selected schools that they want to see. But Don, I want to talk about a big man. You did a story. Was it late last week? You dropped
Kendre,
a story on Kendre Harrison on
Monday.
Monday. Oh, so well, time flies. So earlier this week, Kendre Harrison's story. Um, we talked about this a little bit. This guy is a major target for North Carolina for several reasons. Just sort of talk about dealing with him, talking with him, and all that.
Yeah, I mean, to deal with him, I mean, he is awesome. He really is such a great kid. So I went to Providence Day's practice last week, and for those who don't know me, Kendre won state championships in basketball and football at Reedsville High. I think they played for both the prior season. So his sophomore, he won state championships in both sports. And I think it was his freshman year, they played and lost in the state championship in both sports, and then decided to transfer to Providence Day School really right before the season started. There was a lot of rumblings about it, I guess, starting in June, but it was official right before the season started. Obviously, Providence Day was already on my list of stops because of, you got Zed Lott, who's committed to North Carolina, quarterback there. You have Gordon Sellers, wide receiver, UNC's offer from the 26th class. You have offensive lineman Leo Delaney, who's there. Griff Galloway, the son of Lonnie Galloway, but a 27 defensive lineman who has a bunch of offers, including North Carolina. And then on top of that, we're ignoring the fact that it was also, Jordan Shipp's school, David Sanders, who North Carolina recruited, one of the top players in the nation for the 2025 class that UNC heavily recruited, but he ended up at Tennessee. He's there. So this school's loaded. So I was already planning on going there. And then you're going to throw in Kendre Harrison over there. So anyway, go to the practice. I actually tried to go to the practice a couple times. Heat and the that hurricane that came through actually wiped out a couple of my trips. Finally made it. The first person to greet me, and I usually arrive because I don't want to attend the entire practice. Usually, first half stretching and all that, not that big of a deal. So I arrive in the middle of the practice, and the first person to greet me was Kendre. So, which is just kind of speaks to just the type of player he is, the type of person he is, really. And so got to spend some time watching them practice. And watching him do different things. They're on him pretty hard, which is good. But they use him a ton, not just as a receiving option, but a lot of blocking. I saw them do a lot of different things with motions with him and that sort of thing to get him to take advantage of not just his receiving, but also just being an extra blocker, a big guy, which I think bodes well for his college career. And then afterwards, spoke to him. Also spoke to other people there at the school, including Chad Greer, the head coach there, who's has a tremendous background as far as developing players and putting one into the next level, particularly quarterbacks. From a recruiting standpoint, Kendre has it down to 6 schools. His goal is to attend a game at all 6 schools this season. He has trips scheduled with 4 of them. North Carolina is not one of the 4, but as he told me, he's like, look, it's right around the corner. It's not these other schools. It takes a lot more planning to get to them. UNC, he could basically not have any, like this weekend. I don't know what his plans are. I haven't checked in with him, but he could he could not plan to go anywhere, wake up Saturday morning and say, you know what, let's go to Chapel Hill, and easily do that, where you can't really do that with like a trip to Oregon, or even even Tennessee is a little bit harder to do those sort of things. So that was the gist of it. He has 4 trips scheduled. He talks about all that in the story we ran, and touching on a lot of other aspects of his recruitment, including just the impacts of Zaid Lott recruiting him from North Carolina and that sort of thing.
So, ton of information on the Tar Pit Premium message boards. Don's put it together. There's some extra scoops in today's scoops. You need to be paying attention to that. A lot of good stuff there. Some talk of crystal balls and whatnot. I'm not going to spoil it. You got to subscribe. You have to subscribe. So you have to get on there.
It's not us crystal balling. It's
100%.
Yeah.
It is him bringing it up to Don, which is interesting because it tells me A, those guys pay attention to that stuff, and B, they trust to tell you that type of information. So join Inside Carolina Premium if you're not. If you're subscribed to this and you're not subscribed to that, you really need to take the jump there, and it's worth the price of admission no matter what they cost. Let me ask you, Don, about Kendre Harrison, and we kind of talked about this, and Preston mentioned it in the chat. I think this guy is one of the biggest recruits in years for North Carolina, given his skill set, given that he's an in-state kid, given how much attention they've paid him, and just for the sake of North Carolina basketball's offered him, North Carolina football wants him. I mean, this is a guy they've got to get. I know that the world won't stop if they don't, but
me too well, Tommy.
Your take there, I know you were going to say it, so I stole that talking point for you. I mean, it just feels like for North Carolina to, whatever momentum's generated from the season, whatever there is momentum in the recruiting, I think a Kendre Harrison commitment and subsequent enrollment is giant for the North Carolina athletic program, quite frankly.
Yeah, and so it is a highly competitive recruitment, and I think you laid it out really well on just what makes him so important for North Carolina. UNC has definitely done what they can, as far as kind of laying the groundwork to eventually secure a commitment from him. You look at the fact that, one, their best recruiter, Lonnie Galloway, is handling this recruitment, and Lonnie not only is their best recruiter, but Lonnie's from Reidsville, from that area, played at Reidsville High's rival, Rockingham. So that connection, Kendre has talked about a bunch of different times with interviews with me. Now Kendre, as we mentioned, transferred to Providence Day, where Lonnie Galloway's son goes, which what that means is that Lonnie Galloway can go to Providence Day School whenever he wants to see his son. Obviously there's a lot of times where he sees his son, and his son's going to be doing football activities with his football teammates, and Kendre Harrison is one of those guys. So that obviously helps. In addition to that, UNC has his quarterback committed now, Zaid Lott. And this is covered in the scoop a bunch, so I won't go into too much detail, but Zaid Lott and Kendre have become very quick friends in the short period that Kendre has been at Providence Day School, which helps North Carolina. Also, Deontay Neal, one of a guy. Kendre's cousin. They play AAU basketball together. They were teammates at Reidsville. He's still at Reidsville, so he did leave him behind at Reidsville. But they're very close. UNC's offered him. I believe UNC is the only Power 4 school that I've noticed that Power 4 doesn't flow as well, and sometimes it sounds like powerful. Anyway.
Enunciate, my friend. Enunciate.
I know. Power 5 is just a little bit easier. I get it. There's no more Power 5, even though it technically is. But anyway. So
I like Washington State and Oregon State. Isn't that the other two?
Yeah, because that's still a Power 5 conference, is it not? Even though it's,
It'd be a good chance of winning that conference.
That would, we're 50-50 chance. Anyway,
the thing is that Carolina's really got the deck stacked.
Yes. Yes, and I think also giving the basketball offer is actually completely meaningless, because if he, wherever he goes, if he plays football at that school, he will be on football scholarship.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's more of like a symbolic sort of thing. And at certain points I was like, man, when is North Carolina just going to offer it, just to kind of get that reaction out of them? And I thought they did a really good job. They offered him that basketball scholarship while he was in Chapel Hill for a 7-on-7 camp with his former Reedsville teammates. And I happened to be present. I was at a distance, obviously, but I kind of watched it go down, and he was super excited. And I remember him running over. He ran past me, and he told me immediately what had happened. And I was like, "Hey, can we talk?" And immediately after the camp, he was ready to talk, which was kind of cool. It just kind of speaks to just the impact that made. So far, North Carolina has really played their hand really well with everything in this recruitment. So it's going to be interesting. He wants to kind of still take his officials in June and that sort of thing. And obviously, who knows what sort of impact NIL is going to have on this. You would imagine that this would be the guy that North Carolina would definitely do all that they can to land. But there's so much that goes on kind of behind the scenes that, I'm not privy to.
Yeah, I just think it's a big deal. And like I said, the world goes on regardless of what happens, but this is a guy you got to get. I mean, this is a Ronald Curry-esque recruitment. Obviously, Drake May and Sam Howell were big deals. But this is one of those, we talked about prestige and perception and all those type things. This is the type guy that solidifies that, and I don't think it can be overstated. Maybe it can. Maybe I'm prone to overstatement a lot, but yeah, I think it's a big deal. Mitchell, your question in chat, I just play with the regular default UNC playbook on college football. We're talking with Don Callahan here on the Noon Dish. Don, we're not going to go as long as we have because I've done 3 shows already, and I've got there's only so many words in my brain for a day, and I'm getting up there. But you also dropped the scoop about quarterback recruiting, and I think this is a relevant discussion not only in the recruiting realm but also in the team realm, because North Carolina brought in Max Johnson, and he has a horrific injury. And people tend to criticize players about their play and how good they are, whatever. One thing you can't do is criticize them for how hard they work. And Max Johnson was at the top of that list, busting his rear end to be successful at North Carolina and doing everything he could. And then he goes down like that. I thought he'd blown his knee. Mac was talking about a hip after the fact. It turns out he broke his femur. And that is, for me, just a horrific, scary thought of what happens if you do that. So,
can I make a confession?
Yeah. Have you done it?
No, I don't even know what. So I fell asleep during the game.
Oh my God! Just be quiet. Don't.
I woke up right when that happened, and I was like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah. It was brutal, and so shout out to him and his family and everybody that's taking care of him and all, so he can get well. That puts Kendre Harrison at the top of the list. We've talked about that. It also puts Jacoby Criswell and Michael Merdinger, who we've talked about plenty on this show, potentially a play away. But not only does it do that, Max Johnson has another year or 2 of eligibility, but it also opens up this quarterback race for somebody to come in. Clearly, Bryce Baker is a 25 that, you've covered him plenty. He's looked fantastic this season. And Zaid Lott, you mentioned, even down the road. But how does quarterback play, Don? I say all that to say this. How does quarterback play affect quarterback recruiting?
It's one of those things where I don't think it impacts recruiting as much as you would think. And because if people were kind of puzzled, they were like, UNC had Sam Howell, they had Drake May, and then right afterwards, they kind of struggled, with the class that Merdinger was a part of. He was a guy who UNC kind of had to reach on a little bit. He was a guy who hadn't started a varsity game at the time that he committed to North Carolina. UNC had whiffed on a handful of guys prior to that. The other big part of why some of that was happening is that UNC had, in the middle of that cycle, Phil Longo had left for Wisconsin, and Lindsey became North Carolina's offensive coordinator / quarterback coach, and that's probably the biggest impact on the recruiting there. But yeah, I don't. Obviously, Drake May and Sam Howell have only helped North Carolina with its recruiting, but I don't think that you're seeing guys saying, "Oh, I'm going to go there." If you're a quarterback in Florida, you're not, and you're a 4 or 5-star guy, you're not saying, "Oh, I'm going to go there because look at what those guys did." I just don't think that happens. But if you are a quarterback from Florida, you visit North Carolina, you like the campus, you like the coaches, and then you're like, "Wow, look at this. I mean, look at what some other quarterbacks have done." I mean, that definitely helps. But Bryce having unbelievable season thus far. They haven't really played anyone super standout-ish, but against inferior competition, he is definitely making them look like inferior competition, and that's all you can really ask at this point. They'll have tougher teams coming up on the schedule.
Well, when you look on the high school level, it's one thing to be a highly ranked recruit, but to your point right there, those highly ranked recruits need to make the guys they're playing look like not highly ranked recruits.
Correct.
We've talked about how in the past Carolina's defense could make not highly ranked recruits and players appear better than they are. Bryce Baker's making guys look silly, and like you said, it's early, so there's plenty left to play. But
can I read his week 1 stat line, which I think is unbelievable?
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of ridiculous.
Completed 81.8% of his passes for nearly 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So now he followed that up this past Friday, and it almost kind of seems like a disappointment. But he still threw for 300 yards, a pair of touchdowns, went 15 of 22 on his throws. And, through 2 games, completing 75% of his passes. I mean, you really can't ask for much more. And as I said, the competition will get tougher. And Zaid Lott had a great opener. And then they played what I believe is the top team in the state in Weddington. And it was actually week 1. They played, I guess, a week 0 game, basically. And he got banged up a little bit, didn't perform as well. And then he didn't. Providence Day wasn't able to play this past weekend because of lightning, and I think they canceled that game completely.
Yeah, so a lot to watch in the North Carolina high school recruiting.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, obviously Connor is starting, but UNC has 2 weeks of definitely easy competition. Jim, I wouldn't call them easy competition, but it's a group of 5 school. What are your expectations for the quarterback situation these next few weeks before UNC gets back to ACC play?
So it's interesting. I think you're right. It's in Connor Harrell's hands. Jacoby Criswell is obviously there. He came in late. He's got some work to do to get on it. And I don't, like I said, Merdinger is there now. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Merdinger gets snaps. But what I expect and what I'd like to see, and Evan Rogers really covered this a lot, and folks are missing out if you're not reading Evan's work and listen to his commentary both on the beat and Inside Carolina Live on Saturdays. But these 2 games for North Carolina, Mac and them have talked about the standard, and you heard the players sort of parrot those comments about we're not playing Charlotte, we're playing the standard or whatever. I want to see them open it up to see what Harrell can do, because they did not have a plan for Harrell on Thursday night. I mean, it was hold on, hold the rope, and let's win this game one way or another. And Mac said as much, and that's the ultimate goal. But I want to see North Carolina and Chip Lindsey let it fly and see what they can and can't do, because you don't know until you don't know. And Harrell has done a lot right, but he's also had some turnover issues, and you got to get that out of him one way or another, because that's going to bite you. I mean, he came in against Minnesota, and you said you were asleep. I don't know if you were awake when this happened, but he put the ball on the ground. And
No, I watched all of his, and
yeah,
really, I only slept for a little bit. It was one of those like, oh,
it,
you know,
it's definitely a snoozer at times, but it's Big Ten football. But that's what I want to see. I want to see Harold be put in positions not only to succeed, but also to see what he's got. See, can he handle, running some option, running some RPO type stuff, and throwing the ball downfield. Carolina's not going to reach their goals if they can't throw the football downfield. I watched Bryce Baker throw dimes in high school down the field. I want to see North Carolina's quarterbacks do the same thing, and then the receivers have to step up and make some plays. I mean, a lot of the receivers like to talk. You got to catch the football when it comes your way. But yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see Harold get opportunities, or them to put Harold in opportunities where he's got to make a play other than just turning around and handing it to Hampton.
So, and I actually had this debate a bit. I have a bunch of, I think I mentioned this before, a bunch of my uncles are Notre Dame fans about Riley Leonard not being able to get the ball down the field. And my argument is that there are very few quarterbacks who can actually consistently get the ball down the field. Where basically, when the coach says get the ball down the field, that they can actually do that. And I just don't think there's a whole lot in college football. There are some, there definitely are some, and I think North Carolina has had two, within the last few years. But I just don't think those guys grow on trees, and it's hard to get those guys constantly. I mean, even Notre Dame reaching into the transfer portal couldn't, and they basically have their pick of the litter, and they can't even get a guy like that. They, got Riley Leonard, who's a very good quarterback, but not a guy who I feel like can just push it down the field whenever he wants. Can I give a shout out to Sleet Rat? Looks like he hasn't been here in a long time. Former chat, and I love that he's repping for past MVPs. So, which shows what Sleet Rat can do once he's in the room. And Sean Crawley has the day off. So, and he's spending it with us. So,
yeah,
we appreciate that.
we feel very very flattered that people. There's 60+ people in here. I mean, you walk into a restaurant and start talking, Don, people are going to leave, and now these people freely come to sit and listen to you and I talk on their busy Wednesdays. Anything left on recruiting? And that's kind of like why I ask you about, does quarterback play dictate or have an effect on quarterback recruiting? Because it's not only the quarterback playing, it's the scheme, it's the play calling, it's putting in the position.
And I know you're trying to wrap this up, but I do have a question about that, because Mac actually touched on this, and I felt like, and maybe I missed it, I do try to watch all of his press conferences. I don't feel like he talked about it prior to the game, and that would make sense because you don't want to kind of give away your playbook. But it did feel like there was a switch that went on with the offense, which being very, very run heavy and just kind of, very Big Ten-esque, really, from what I saw, which is probably why I fell asleep for a little bit. And then Mac did talk about that. What were your thoughts on just kind of this? I mean, is this is what we were expect from the offense? This is the plan.
Yeah, I don't know if game one, I've said it a lot, and I said it even watching Florida State lose to Georgia Tech, even though they doubled down on it losing to Boston College, is I don't know that game one is really the be-all, end-all for what's going to be. I think in this game, going into this game, no, I did not. They weren't going to play Kendre Harrison unless they had to. Max Johnson had been that much better in practice.
But even before, with Johnson, I felt like it was very run-heavy.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm going. So, okay. but what they wanted to do is, by any means necessary, get out of there with a win. And you've got the best player on the field behind you in Amarian Hampton. And Amarian can carry the load even when you're not blocking, as well as need be or sufficiently. Amarian was getting, what he have, 100 of his 129 after contact. So, and that was the bell cow for them. And I felt like they did not want to open it up too terribly much, because when they did open it up and Johnson had, I'm thinking Bryson Nesbitt downfield, it was a late ball, a little bit behind Nesbitt. It worse should have been knocked down by Nesbitt, but it makes you gun shy. In a game that you're going to have 7, 8, 9 possessions, you can't turn it over like that. and then you had the strip sack fumble down on our end of the stadium that would have been a gigantic momentum killer had they not recovered that. So you've got those type situations. So I think they sort of closed it in, leaned on Hampton, and just get the hell out of Minnesota with a win, and it worked. And
Yeah.
that is ultimately all that matters. That's why these next 2-3 weeks are important to let it fly.
Mm-hmm.
See what you can do, because you're going to need to do something other than turn and give it to Amarian against teams that have gotten that are better, simply better than Minnesota on defense, better than Central or Charlotte or whatever. So I'm not ready to write off the offense at this point. But yeah, it's going to be much different.
Well,
And I'm interested to see how Chip Lindsey can develop a game plan where he's going to have to win some games left-handed, like Jason Staples would always say, like where your best option might be taken away. I got to figure out a different way, and that's what I'm watching.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to disparage the offense. I'm just more talking about, like, is this a change of, complete change of philosophy for this season? Because Mac also mentioned complementary ball, meaning that and kind of talked about how the defense wasn't on the field as much, and how it was kind of reflected. One of the reasons that was because of how the offense was playing and was kind of, working the clock a bit. Whereas in the past, there has been some conversation, particularly with Phil Longo, that he wasn't conscious of, the clock and what sort of impact, his philosophies and how he would do things have on the defense and other aspects of the team.
Yeah.
So
I don't doubt that there's a shift
mm-hmm.
because of what you have at running back, and your offensive line is better running the ball than it is pass protecting. But again, I'm gonna wait to see, maybe through the Duke game, to see what I think this offense is going to look like, because what we saw against Minnesota, I don't think is sustainable. I don't think they're good enough to play straight Big Ten Wisconsin football, and we're just going to run it down your throat and win every game 17-15 or 19-17. So a lot of football to be played. Week one is sort of what might be after week 4 or 5. You kind of are what you are at that point, with a few wrinkles put in there. So let me talk about sponsors right fast. Johnny T-shirt, JohnnyT-shirt.com. Look at this fancy thing right here I got. It's as fancy as we get. I don't know how fancy it is. Look at that. I can run Johnny T-shirt. In case you don't know how to spell it, JohnnyT-shirt.com, scrolling on your screen.
Well, it's not spelling. I would wonder, do you put a dash in there? Is there, but now you have this. I don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, so now you can just copy this. You can look, say JohnnyT-shirt.com, bam, enter. Get a wide-ranging variety of gear you can buy from them. They've got the jerseys. I've said it before, those white throwbacks. May see them at some point this year. Those white throwbacks are amazing. They've got all the rain gear you need if it's rainy on Saturday, or if it gets cold at some point. They've got everything at Johnny T-shirt on East Franklin Street, and also JohnnyT-shirt.com. Great customer service, great attitudes from those folks. They are amazing folks. If you want to have a pleasant experience, go to Johnny T-shirt. They are just wonderful to deal with, and they hook you up with the best deals. And in South Carolina, not only you get Don Callahan scoops and dishes and all, we got to change the name. The branding is Dish, Don, not Scoops, so you need to stop using Scoops. But they give you 10% off if you're an Inside Carolina Premium subscriber.
You get the scoop, you put it in the dish.
That's right. So the dish is better than the scoop.
Sure.
The bigger the dish, the better the scoop.
Whoa, hey
now. Hey, there you go. I don't know if that was appropriate, but it is what it is. Also, I'm going to talk about congruityhr.com. Congruity, email Matt at congruityhr.com for your small to mid-sized business assessment. Is free for Inside Carolina folks. If you need their help and you ask for their help, they give you a plan. You can use it or not. But I tell you what, they've made their business from local to national. They can do the same for you with great customer service, technological support, and Matt, Darren, and the crew will handle all the heavy lifting while you handle growing your business. Congruity, and it's Matt at congruity.hr. congruityhr.com for that free assessment. We are back on the noon dish for all the people listening on audio. Don, anything left in recruiting?
There was a question.
Uh-oh. Did I miss it?
Before we go to, although, you were supposed to give your whole breakdown of the fair.
I did, didn't I?
Supposed to give it towards the end, but anyway.
I don't want to spoil it. Where's the question? I'm missing it.
It is James Cummings, who is two-time Chet MVP.
Okay, you want to talk about that?
Yep.
And Tavius Richardson offers for wide receiver, safety, and cornerback. Does he have a positional preference? Was it asked? Still like our chances despite Bama's push, and they have a committed safety listed. They have no committed safety listed.
Yeah. So I probably would have to ask him. My conversation with him was only a few weeks ago, but yet so much has changed, since then with the offers. And the thing too, you bring up Alabama, which I think I'm glad that you did. They throw these offers out. Georgia does the same thing, and then you don't hear anything. And so you just never know if they really are interested in the kid or if it's kind of like just a placeholder sort of situation. So yeah, you never know, what sort of competitor Alabama is in a particular recruitment. All I know from my conversation with him, I just kind of pulled up my notes, is that UNC has talked to him about cornerback. He really liked that idea. He plays quarterback at his high school. So regardless of any of those positions, there's going to be a transition period for him, those schools. But I need to catch up with him. I need to find out, North Carolina obviously has 3 home games coming up back to back. And so I know he was targeting one of those games for a visit. So I need to kind of touch base with him on that. And so obviously I'll bring up the position stuff. And, I'm sure whenever he does visit North Carolina, they'll go in a lot more in depth on just usage and fit and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to be done there as well. I don't see any more questions. I do see a couple top fives. What you got left, Don, before I spin it to the top fives?
I think that's really it. A lot of it is, coming up is a lot of 26 stuff that we have coming up. We'll continue to do the position breakdowns. As we mentioned, we did the quarterback one this week. We'll break down every position with regards to the 26 class in the coming really months that ends up happening. And then, as I said, 3 home games. So there'll be a lot of recruits visiting campus the next few weeks. And that's probably going to that will take priority unless there's a commitment or whatever for the next few weeks.
There's a last question for you from Lovey's Fat Life. I think FAT stands for something.
Oh, okay.
Lovey, hit me and let me know. How are we looking on defensive linemen for the future, 25 and later? I mean, you got to have them. Can't win football games without stout defensive linemen. North Carolina has had an interesting recruiting, not stance, but production there. We've seen that. But what have you seen for 25, 26?
Yeah, so the one thing that really pops out in my mind is the fact that Devin Ankrum is having an amazing season at Mill Creek, which Mill Creek has produced tons of really good players, including Caleb Downs, who's at Ohio State now, Jaden Patterson, a few guys, Aiden Banfield, who's a true freshman starter offensive line. This is Ankrum is a kid who has gone up against Aiden in practice the past few seasons, but he's having a really good season, including 2 field goal blocks. Let me see what else we have for him. 17 tackles in three games, a sack, and 2 field goal blocks in 3 games, which kind of just speaks to just his versatility, just type of playmaker he is. That's the one thing that pops out. But obviously, you have a guy like Austin Alexander, who is a big academic kid, but a little on the raw side, but is more of like an edge rusher sort of guy who I think eventually will develop into a quality talent for North Carolina once he's on campus. And UNC is still kind of recruiting for this class for the D-line class has an offer out to Braxton Kyle. He's similar to we talked about Antavius Richardson. He's kind of like, I don't know if I want to use the term late bloomer, but he's a guy who just recently started picking up scholarship offers, including one from North Carolina, and then Georgia offers, Texas offers, so a bunch of these big schools out of nowhere. And the kid's been committed to Rutgers since June. So he goes from having Rutgers to having like all these other offers, which is kind of crazy. So his recruitment is a little, kind of blowing up. Another kid at a quality Atlanta area school in North Gwinnett. As far as the 26 class, there's a bunch of guys in North Carolina's recruiting. Obviously, none of them are committed, but we'll cover all of that in the coming weeks.
Ton to pay attention to on the weekly Don Callahan weekly dish on the Tar Pit Premium message boards and on Inside Carolina. Shout out to Henny. I asked how far Abu Dhabi was from Chapel Hill. Is 7.2 thousand miles. That's freaking insane. You cannot drive. Yeah. I wonder if you take a boat, how long it take you to get here, or a ship. Anyway, let's get into the top five fair foods relevant. Minnesota State Fair was going on last week. North Carolina State Fair coming up. We'll go Preston first. Apple fritters, deep fried Twinkies, deep fried Oreos, turkey legs. Are those? Are we sure those things aren't really like baby pig legs or something? They don't look like. I ain't never seen turkey leg look like that. A Krispy Kreme donut cheeseburger.
That.
I just had a heart attack reading that.
Yeah, I'm really interested. I have never had the Krispy Kreme donut cheeseburger. I'm interested. I'm wondering he has it number one. I love donuts, as everyone knows, and I like bacon, but I don't like bacon on donuts. So I feel like I love Krispy Kreme and I love burgers. My initial thought is that I might not like that.
Yeah, I love donuts. I'll eat anything donut wise, but I don't know about adding a cheeseburger to it. My stomach is not what it used to be, so that's a lot of stuff.
You can't even handle corn.
Yeah, I cannot eat corn. There's no point in eating corn. It's just simply no point. Where'd you go? Let's go, Sean Crowley.
You learn something new every day. That's what I learned today.
Well, yeah, I'm just like, what's the point? 5 foods, funnel cake, cider donut smothered in sugar. Not sure I know what that is. Jumbo hot pretzels, caramel popcorn, or any Italian food at an Italian fair. Insanely good. Funnel cake's going to be on mine. The problem with funnel cake at the fair is you basically have to wear an apron when you eat it, because you can walk around the fair and say that person had funnel cake, and that's not good. I don't want to be covered in the powdered sugar or the chocolate or whatever, but I love some funnel cake. Slee Rat dropping his. There's funnel cake again. Candy apples. I'll commentate on candy apples. They will snatch the teeth out of your mouth.
Yes.
That's why I cannot eat them. I'm not a huge apple person, but candy apples is just like, my teeth are stuck in my head. I don't want them stuck in an apple. Fried Snickers, freshly squeezed lemonade, and an all-the-way cheeseburger.
Ooh, that sounds good.
I will say this. They had some lemonade in Minneapolis or Minnesota Fair, and normally lemonade makes me thirsty, like thirstier than I was before I drank it, and the freshly squeezed stuff did not. It's top shelf. What's your top 5?
Okay, as I said, I'm a big fair person. One of the issues is I love the food, but like fair, especially the North Carolina State Fair, is like the grossest place in the world. It really is, and so I feel like I need to get a bunch of shots before I go to the fair, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I love to try the different burgers. I love fair pizza. The big jumbo pretzels, I think someone had on their list. Those are always good. A lot of times you get them, they come with some sort of dip or some sort of topping or whatever. That's always good. The coolest, or I don't know if the coolest, but the most adventurous is all the different stuff, normal stuff that they take and fry. And a lot of people have those on the list. Fried Twinkies, fried Snickers bar. It's like taking stuff that is already, I mean, this is what all this is taking something that's already super unhealthy and finding a way to make it even more unhealthy.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so those are kind of sort of my list.
I like some deep fried Oreos. We do them at home when we have a fish fry or whatever. We'll get some fresh oil and do deep fried Oreos. I love those.
Okay.
I mentioned funnel cake. I really like that. There's a place at the North Carolina State Fair, and I'm not sure what the name of it is, but it's got tables and stuff. They got some great Philly cheesesteaks. I really like that. I used to be a candy. Um, what's the stuff that's like a pillow? Cotton candy.
Oh, cotton
I
candy.
used to like that, but it's like, what's the point eating that stuff?
Yeah, you
'Cause
eat it and you almost feel like you're not eating anything.
yeah, exactly. It's just like that's
Yeah.
the waste.
Weird.
I might as well have eaten the $10 I paid them to do it. Um, anything. There was something. Oh, I like a good corn dog, man. And
Okay.
and they have some good ones. And what would be my fifth? Probably, something like a deep fried Snickers,
I
probably.
love how Tommy, I like prepare my list,
I
right?
don't. I wing it.
I like, I write it down and
Well,
all
you're
that.
writing it down and I'm talking. I'm carrying the show and you're doing something else, I'm
There is
just
one question before you finish. There is one question Sean had.
all right, we'll get it out and then we're getting out of here. Where's it at?
The last one he mentioned.
Oh, you want to go to that? Don, you ever go to Linville Orchards for great cider donuts?
So, when I was a kid, one of my friends, for whatever reason, for his birthday, his family would take his friends to some orchards. And I don't remember which one. It could have been this, but it basically was like everything was you go and you pick your own apples, all that sort of stuff. And then there was just tons of apple this, apple that, all that sort of stuff. And so it very well could have been that. I would have to go and check with my mom to see where we would go, because it was when I was like in elementary school. We go every single year for his birthday.
That's cool. Oh, one other thing they had at the Minneapolis Fair is they're big on apples up there, apples and cheese. So you had cheese curds, of course, but they had, those push-up ices. I don't know what you even call them, but I eat a million of them that are in like the plastic sleeve, and you freeze it. It's
Yeah, yeah,
basically
yeah.
10 cent worth of water. They had apple cider ones of those,
Okay.
frozen. That was kind of top shelf. That was something different. But yeah, plenty to talk about. Have not eaten today. Officially hungry. It is almost 1 o'clock. I said we were not going an hour. We're going to go 55 minutes. We'd spend the noon dish with Don
Hey,
Callahan.
can I show you my favorite? I think I've talked about it before.
Oh my God, are you going to drag this out? Dude, them
Best there is.
things.
Dude, let
Those
me just
things
tell
are
you.
freaking
So the
terrible.
Walmart around the corner from my house, I go there. So you can't buy them in a box. They just have them at the register. I buy them all. And so there'll be, I buy them all and I go back the next couple of days and they don't have any. And then they put out a new box and I go buy them all again. And so, of course, when we went to Atlantic Beach, I found a Food Lion that had them, bought them all. But yeah, so I get this and I have a stash. I have a stash.
Tasty cakes.
Tasty cakes. It's Boston cream honey bun. Yeah, if anyone wants to buy a bunch of them,
How many calories and fat grams are on the back of
you
that
know,
thing?
I don't like to look at that sort of thing. Let's see. It says calories. Oh, see, this is one of those per serving is 290. Per package, 580. So I don't know. Oh, so it says 2 servings per container. This is just one whole one. And they said this is 2 servings, probably because they know that 580 in calories is way too high.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be having a GoFundMe page for Don Callahan's heart surgery at some point. Jesus.
It's worth it.
I really will feel bad if it actually happens one day, but put down the Tasty Cakes, Don Callahan. It's been the noon dish, sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and Congruity. Shout out to everybody that's been here. We're up for fun. We're up to have a good time talking about it. But Tasty Cakes, I cannot do. Love you, Don. Everybody else, stay safe.
See you later.